Maybe. Oh, you're talking about this tab here? Yeah. Yep. It'll go to what's synced, but you have to have stuff in your library. Yeah. Yep, that is new.
Welcome to Adobe Max 2017, Las Vegas, the Dell FMC campus. Once again, make sure you take a look and take a stroll over by our perimeter here for all the fancy Dell equipment that we have on display, as well as our Ask the Expert station that we have that we'll have manned here for any questions that will follow. We are live streaming, but these live streams are going to be available to everyone at FMC Training, so fmctraining.com, or you can go to the YouTube channel at Future Media Concepts. And thank you very much to Dell for allowing us to partner together here to deliver all these free sessions for you. Coming right up, Mr. Richard Harrington.
Thank you. So my name's Rich Harrington, and we're coming to you live from Adobe Max at the Dell booth here and the Dell campus. And we're going to be exploring some techniques that you can do to really bring your images to life. I'm going to focus on two major types of technology today: adjustment layers and camera raw. And I'm going to show you some of the tools that are so easy to use. You literally just click on the part of the image you want to adjust, and Photoshop figures it out for you. So they're not automatic tools, but they're tools that are guided tools where you tell Photoshop what you want it to do, and it figures things out. So for those of you who are here joining us in the booth, you can launch Adobe Bridge just by clicking the Bridge icon on the toolbar on the bottom there, and it might give you a couple of click to accept things, so just click and hit OK so you know that it's going to launch, and just go ahead and finish launching Bridge, and you can also launch Photoshop, so that's running. Now, what I've done is I have navigated to my desktop, and on my desktop I went to a folder that was just called Harrington Dell Photo Sessions, there we go, and Fixing Images in Photoshop, and Photo 1, Folder 1. So that path, if you ever get lost, is right here at the top of the screen. Desktop, Harrington, Fixing Color and Exposure, and we're in Folder 1. So let's start with 1A here, and I want to show you something really very simple. So we're going to use the Adjustments panel, and if your Photoshop looks different, you can always choose Window, Workspace, Essentials, and it will reset everything to match sort of the default layout. So what I want you to do is take advantage of the Curves adjustment. Curves is a very easy to use tool that affects the contrast in an image. And a lot of people are thrown by curves because they don't know where to click. Here's what's awesome. There's this little tool here called the On Image tool. It looks like a finger, and you're literally going to point it at what you want to adjust. So if I click this, I can come over and say, oh, you know what would be nice? If this was a little brighter or a little darker. And if this white here was a little brighter. So you can literally just click on the image and drag up or down to change the contrast of the photo. You don't have to know where to click on the curve. You just take the tool and select what you want to adjust. And it becomes super easy to fix the image. Now, another thing that's really easy, and there is no shame in the auto button if you know how to use auto. Here's what I mean by that. How many of you drive a car that's automatic? Most, right? You still need to know how to drive a car that's automatic. If you Alt click on the auto button, you get the driving. You have the steering wheel. Now you can say, oh, fix the channel per channel contrast and snap the neutral midtones. And instantly, the color cast is removed from your image and the contrast is fixed. Photoshop has 4 different auto methods with a snapping method as well. So all I did there was add a Curves adjustment layer from the Adjustments panel, hold down the Alt key when clicking on Auto, and told it to snap the per channel contrast with snapping neutral midtones. And look how it instantly removes the color cast from the sky and gets everything to be a nice clean white and black point. Does that make sense to everyone here? It's a really easy tool to get things right. Now, a couple people are standing around the edges. We do still have a few open computers, so if you want to get hands-on, you can do that. Let's go back to Bridge for a moment, and I want to open up this one called 1C Format. And now we're going to go into Adobe Camera Raw. So just open that up. And a lot of people are overwhelmed by Adobe Camera Raw because it has all of these tabs. By the way, there's not a single thing that Adobe Camera Raw can't do that Lightroom does. It's the exact same engine. It's just a different interface. So, if you guys liked that on image tool before, the little finger that we pointed and did things with, there's an even better one here in Camera Raw. Up at the top, you have this little target here. It's called the Targeted Adjustment Tool, or TAT. It's right in the top toolbar. And if you click, you can say, oh, I want to do a curve. Same thing. Oh, you know what would be nice? If this area was a little bit darker and the whites were a little brighter. And it will move the curve for you. But here's where it gets amazing. I can say, oh, I don't want to change the tone. I want to change the hue. I really wish that the sky was this color blue. And I really wish that the grass was greener. And then I can click on that same tool and choose saturation. I wish the sky was more saturated and the grass was lusher and that the rock was a little redder. And without having to do anything, no selections, no masks, no paintbrush, no tragic wand, marquee tool, or pen tool, you've color corrected the image. It's an amazing technology. And before you ask, because some of you are thinking this, it's been there for 8 years. So it's great technology, it's just overlooked because, well, why would I choose the targeted adjustment tool? That makes no sense. But that's why it's here. And this is one benefit of training, is that with training, you get exposed to things that you might have missed. So I could adjust the luminance of the mountain there, making it a little darker. And I could say I want to bring up the saturation, and you can dial that in, which is cool. Now, another thing in Camera Raw that's worth knowing is sharpening. And that's the third tab here, the one with the little triangles. Sharpening is one of those things that every image, whether you're going to the web or to print or to the screen, needs to be sharpened. And most people have no idea how to sharpen because it's hard to see. Hold down your Alt key and drag the masking slider, and you'll see exactly what's being sharpened. The white areas are sharpened. So I can set my mask to the desired target, sharpen the edges of the building and the edges of the clouds. Third tab is the little mountains. And then I can increase the amount in the radius. And as you hold down that gray key there, that Alt key, you can really see what's happening to your edges. And you can judge the sharpening. So it really lets you dial that in. Lastly is the little one here that looks like a camera lens. Every lens messes up your image. It curves it at the edges. It puts darkening at the edges you might not want. If you just check this box for chromatic aberration and profile correction, it instantly recognizes things and fixes it. By the way, if your picture's not straight, click on the little bubble level and just draw a line, and now your picture's straight, and it fixes it. So Photoshop has all these great tools built in that are visual. Rather than working by number, that makes no sense, just grab the right tool and measure the straight line. Pull the color that you want to pull. Speaking of pulling, most people don't know that the histogram is live. Darker shadows. There we go. Let's move the midtones, recover the highlights, pop the white point. Everything's right there, and you could just pull the histogram until the image looks good to you. So you literally grab the parts of the image that you want to adjust and just pull them over, and the image adjusts. And you can see a nice side-by-side comparison of how far it came right within Camera Raw before we ever hit Photoshop. If you're an art director, you're a designer, and you're working with photographers, ask them if they're willing to give you the raw file. If they say no, then say, can you make me a DNG? Adobe has the DNG format, so you can actually save this raw file out as a new raw file, and all of the adjustments you made in Camera Raw are tucked inside. So they can crop, they can remove the spots, they can fix everything, because what they're afraid of if they give you the raw file is that you're gonna put the photo out that hasn't been developed. It's kind of like if people came to the restaurant and you just slap some carrots and a raw steak on the table. You go, what do you mean? It's a great restaurant. We only have the finest ingredients. They're terrified that you don't know how to prepare the ingredients, so they don't want to give you the raw file. But if you have the raw file, you can do some pretty amazing things, and it really lets you tweak and adjust the image. All right, let's go forward. I'm gonna go ahead and click Open Image here so it brings it in, and you see that it comes in. Now, under the Adjustments panel here, I want you to take a look at the little checkerboard here. It looks like a tic-tac-toe grid. This is the least used adjustment layer, and it's the best. It's called Color Lookup Tables. And when you click it, there's a whole list of presets here for digital film stocks. So you can instantly make something look like it was shot on film. It gives it the character and the tone. Now, after you apply that, you might put a curves adjustment in there, but the color lookup tables are awesome. It just looks like a little tic-tac-toe grid. You click on it, and from the pop-up list, you have all sorts of film stocks that you can apply, and then just adjust the opacity to taste to give it the look. But this takes digital images and gives them the characteristic of film with the nice rich blacks and bright highlights. And there's a wealth of these available for purchase and free online. It is possible to actually take old photographs and film stocks and make digital equivalents that describe the color so that you can apply that to other imagery. And this is a great way to do this. All right, let's go back to Adobe Bridge, and we're going to do some fun things here. I'll go up one level in my fixing color and exposure, and we're going to talk about non-destructive workflows. So I just went up a level by clicking on the file path here, or you can click the back button and that will do the same thing. And we're going into folder 2. Now, I'm going to open up this image here. This is from a trip that I took to Jerusalem, and I want to show you how we can work non-destructively to adjust the image. One trick I'm going to teach you is that the black and white adjustment layer is your friend. What you want to do is click the little one here that looks like it's half black and half white. And this is going to make a grayscale image. This may sound strange, but by adding extra grayscale information into a color photo, we can really boost the contrast and the depth. And it's a great trick. It's like overprinting the blacks to get more information in there. All right. It has the exact same on image tool. So you can just click and say, oh, I really wish this was brighter and that this shadow was a little darker. And let's roll this one here. And you could start to click inside of your image and it will adjust the black and white conversion. Now you might be thinking, but I don't want black and white. No big deal. If you've got a layer selected and you got the move tool activated, there's a great keyboard shortcut. Shift plus will change the blending mode of your adjustment layer. And so a mode like overlay or soft light is excellent for blending that black and white image in and giving you a higher contrast color photo. You can lower the opacity to taste, but I do this all day long. Rather than jack up the curves and crush the image, I make a black and white photo and blend it back in. And it's just like the digital equivalent of bumping up the blacks when printing. And it gives you an impact that's more powerful and really starts to bring out the depth and contrast in the image. So it's a great little trick, and the key there is blending modes and the on image tool. And now that it's blended, I can still use the on image tool and watch. Oh, hey, let's play with those areas. Get that right. Let's get a little bit more here, there. That looks good. And I can start to adjust. Hey, go after the greens a little bit, and let's take the blues there for the sky. And look at how it becomes a great targeted adjustment tool for really bringing things back to life. Now, a lot of you are probably going, that's cool, but I don't understand what's happening. One of the things you want to eventually do is start to learn how channels work. Either spend some time with a printer or read a great book like Channel Chops by Bert Monroy or some of the work by Dan Margolis, but this will help you understand how color works and it starts to let you think differently. All right, let's go up a level and we're gonna go into folder 3 for working with RAW. And I wanna show you some amazing tools to fix common issues. So we're gonna open up a bunch of these images here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just double click. Now, this image suffers from a common problem that happens when you go and shoot in a desert, and that is dust. When I swapped lenses, I got some dust inside on the sensor. Well, there's a little tool here that looks like a magic brush. It's sparkly, and this allows you to easily click and remove spots. And it's like the clone tool, and it just samples automatically and removes any of those spots you might have. Now, I want to show you a tool that just got updated. Now, they talked about it being in Lightroom, but it's actually in Photoshop too. And that is the ability to do luminosity masking. It's a little tricky, so just watch for a moment before you try to do it. You take the graduated filter here. This filter lets you blend from one area to another. And I'm going to say that I want it to get darker at the top and a little more saturated. But the problem is, you see, it's totally affecting the tree. I only wanted it to do the sky, not the tree. Well, at the bottom down here, you have range masking, and you could adjust the luminance. So I'll just check the box here to see the mask, and I'll make this a Rubylith mask because I'm old and I'm used to seeing my masks in red. But I could adjust and say, oh, don't go after the dark shadows. And look at how you could adjust the range and the softness so that it ignores certain parts of the image. So it automatically masked out that tree with all those spikes and bumps on it. And again, no pen tool, no mask, no paintbrush, it's there. So now, all day long, we can adjust the sky. And I can get the saturation correct, I can roll the color temperature a little bit bluer to get exactly the color sky I want, and it looks really natural. I'll do the same thing here and say new, and this time you can try it, and we're going to drag one on the foreground. Except instead of making that colder, we're going to make that one warmer, and just a little change there. Bump up the clarity, and look at how that now pops. If we take a look at that side by side, you'll notice that what's happened is we've really brought out the detail and the color. So these graduated filter tools are awesome. And at the bottom here, they've got great limiters. So you can say only apply to a certain color. So I can limit this to color and just click and drag here to say that I want it to be affecting only the sand. And so now once you select that color, you can start to see what it's affecting. There we go. So you can be super specific with these masks. The two new options that were just added in 2018 is the ability, after you make one of these, to limit it based on either the color that you pick or the luminosity, which is the brightness of the image. And now, without having to do anything crazy, you can bring things to life. And this is amazing tech. I really like how it lets me selectively develop parts of the photo afterwards. I'm a big fan of getting it right in camera, but sometimes, I'll let you know a secret, so I have kids, and the prospect of going out for golden hour or getting up at 4 a.m. to go take pictures is something I miss some days, but it ain't happening. My wife doesn't let me do that often. I get 2 weeks a year where I can go take pictures outside of family trips or business trips. So I don't get that opportunity to go when the light is perfect. I have to make the light perfect afterwards. And because I know how light works, you can totally do this after the fact. All right, let's go here to the same one, but we're gonna do this flower. Same thing, you learned about the targeted adjustment tool earlier, try it out, luminance. And I could say, you know what? Darken that background a little bit. And let's darken the flower. I like that. That looks good. Let's pull that down a little. And let's change the saturation here so the greens are a little less saturated. That's good. And I don't like that orange, so let's change the hue here slightly to get it a little bit more golden. That targeted adjustment tool should be your new friend because it lets you do everything. Now you might be saying, but I don't have a raw photo. In Adobe Bridge, you can right click and say open in Camera Raw and force a non-raw file into Camera Raw. Or in Photoshop, you can apply Camera Raw as a filter and do the same thing right in Photoshop to a non-raw file. All right, let's try that radial vignette filter, the radial filter here, and just draw over our flower. We can rotate that into place if needed, and we're gonna just make a nice change here. Cool the edges down, and we're gonna darken the edge a little bit. And now all of a sudden, we've got some great lighting happening. We're drawing the viewer's attention into the subject by making this elliptical shape. I'll usually pull the clarity down, but put the dehaze up a little bit, and now all of a sudden we've got the type of lighting we want on our subject. Okay? So the two tools that are really useful here is going to be the graduated filter and the radial filter, which allow you to apply a selective adjustment. And both of those filters will support the luminance range. So if needed, you can adjust what areas are affected. So notice I could say, oh, don't go after the highlights. And by bringing that in a little bit, it's not affecting the highlights as much. And I can have a nice bright highlight, even though I boosted the shadows. And this is great because it lets you make more photorealistic vignettes as opposed to the cheesy vignette effect that just says, put a black circle that's blurry on top of everything. This is how it would actually happen in the real world. All right, go to this one here, the one with the buildings, and I want to show you a really cool tool that most people don't know exists. It's the transform tool. And so if you have a picture that feels skewed or leaning, the transform tool can compensate for perspective issues. Maybe the camera was too low to the ground. Like if I wanted this building shot to be accurate, I'd need to be in a cherry picker so I was centered. It kind of feels like it's doing this. Well, with the targeted adjustment or with the transform tool here, you can click auto and it will analyze the image and give you that classic vanishing point perspective. Or we can say, oh, favor a more horizontal image or stronger vertical lines. And now all the verticals are actually vertical. And you can even do a really forced one here that's more aggressive. Now, the one that's really crazy is this one, the one that lets you draw your own lines. So I can come in and say, you know what? I really wish that this was a vertical and this was a vertical and so was this. And where I draw is going to be affected. Or if you were to say, draw a line here across the street and another line, let's just delete one of these here in the middle, and another one across the top, look at how it totally remapped that. Now that was extreme and there's distortion in there, but this tool literally turns your image into silly putty and you draw the straight lines and it does everything else to fix it. Now this is way too far, but I wanted you to see how much power was in that tool to fix perspective issues. So it doesn't matter if the shot was a little to the left or to the right or a little low, it's fixed. And so on this last image here, that's exactly what I would do. This is a memorial here over in the Philippines, and I really want these pillars to be perfectly straight. So I can go through that image, and even though I've got a little lens distortion, I can totally fix that and set my floor plane here for the straight line. And now the image is just rock solid before and after. And so it's great to be able to get those classic lines that you want in the photo so it feels proper perspective. And a couple of you who came up late, I don't want you to be left out. The targeted adjustment tool is your friend. Hey, you know what would be nice? Let's make this area a little brighter and this area a little darker. And I really wish that the yellow was coming through. So let's roll the color here so it's not such a sickly yellow, but it's more that classic marble feel. And I really wish that this area over here was a little darker. That targeted adjustment tool is amazing. You just click on the image and drag, and it will do what you want it to do to bring the image back to life. Is that making sense for those of you that are here in our live audience? You can do some amazing things with that tool. All right, we got time for probably one or two more images. I'll go back to Bridge here. And let's go ahead and fix one more image. We're going to go with some primary adjustments for exposure. So number 4. And I want to show you how powerful we can get with fixing it. And this time, we're going to go with a non-raw file. Okay? So let's open up this one here called Auto Levels. And it's a little dark and muddy. No big deal. Using our adjustment layers, we can choose the Curves tool here and Alt-click on the word Auto. And I'm going to say Fix Per Channel Contrast, Snap Neutral Midtones. Look at how it removed the color cast. The browns are brown, the grass is green, the sky is blue. Photoshop is pretty smart when you have a well-toned image, and it can find all of that stuff for you very quickly. Now, other adjustments that I'd really like to point out that are quite useful, here's this hue saturation adjustment. And you might be thinking, oh, hue saturation, that's a useless effect. It is, unless you use the targeted adjustment tool. So now I can click on the blue sky and tone down or beef up the blue sky because it limited the adjustments to the area that I clicked on. And then I could, with the same adjustment layer, click on the brown grass here, and I could adjust the browns so they were a little less saturated and a little browner. Same tool. And oh, let's click on the green grass here and make the greens a little more saturated and a little brighter. It's amazing how one adjustment layer can contain 4 or 5 adjustments. I bet you never realized that Photoshop giving you the finger was the best thing ever, right? These two tools, the on-image tool and the targeted adjustment tool, unlock everything so you can get exactly what you want by just clicking and dragging and pulling things around. Now, what's nice here is we're working on a very beefy system, so this keeps up, but these tools are very fast in real-time response. And if you've got a modern computer with a modern GPU, you don't see any lag. And you might even be able to get an option like a touch screen where you can draw right on the image itself. So I have a Dell laptop that has a touch screen. I can just use a pen right on the screen or my finger and just start pulling and pushing like it was wet paint and get what you want. Let's do one more photo. And let's go with this one here. We'll go back up and we're going to go to level 5, primary adjustments for color. Now, I want to show you a classic problem that happens, and that is that things just don't feel quite balanced. So we'll open up this image called Vibrance, and Vibrance is a fantastic adjustment. So if you've over-relied on saturation, move to Vibrance. Vibrance is going to go after areas that need the saturation the most, which is typically going to be the blue skies and the green grass. So it makes it really easy to bring out those clouds, which works great. Additionally, if I toss on that hue saturation adjustment layer, I can now click on the clouds here, and I can pull out the color cast in the clouds and click on the Space Needle here and drag down, and it removed the golden sun color cast and just brought that back to pure white. Again, These tools make it so easy because you don't have to even spot the problem. You could just go, I bet that really bright white object was picking out some of the color from the sun. Let me pull that down and nail it. All right. Hopefully this guys gives you some different ideas on how to pull this together. My name's Rich Harrington. I have a lot of online education. I've got a good 80 movies built into the Photoshop help menu. So if you start looking in Photoshop, I often pop up. I have a lot of courses on lynda.com and ThinkTap Learn. So hopefully that'll help you. And if you're old school, pick up my book, Understanding Adobe Photoshop. I'd like to thank Future Media Concepts. I've taught for them for 13 years. They're a really great organization that puts on a lot of training events, conferences, and classroom education. If you feel like in 30 minutes you've unlocked some new things, consider asking for a 2-day Photoshop class where nobody's interrupting you and you're hands-on the whole time. It's really kind of a cool thing. And also, thanks to Dell for having us here in their booth. My name's Rich Harrington, and for those of you watching live or the replay, thanks for joining us here at Adobe Max.